All right, let's try this. I've been meaning to go through and revisit my Tom Waits catalog of records, which I don't really talk about at all. And I know he does get some mentions out there, certainly a major artist. But when I was much younger, I listened to Tom Waits all the time, and yes, I collected all of his records. It's been many years since I have checked them out, but at the start of 2025, one thing I started doing was listening to each and every one of Tom Waits' records, which I do own. First of all, in a way to say, well, do I still like them? Am I still a fan? And do I want to keep them? That is the current question I am sort of battling with. It's hard. It's a nostalgia thing. You know, certain things, when you have them, they bring you back to a certain time, memories, and Tom Waits certainly does bring me back to the 90s, early 2000s too. He hasn't really been very active, but if you know anything about Tom Waits, once we got to the 90s, I think he was, parenting. His gaps of time between records, tours, and everything was incredibly long. So, as of right now, he's done a little bit of acting here and there, not much musical activity. There's been the reissues, there's been the sort of like George Lucas style sort of remixing and re-recording of certain things, which I've not been a fan of. Yeah, it's been a little weird, but I kind of think he's going to do one more turn here. One more turn around the bend with a record, or I don't know about a tour. He's getting up there. I believe he is, like 75 or something like that. I wanted to revisit the records because if you know, he has very distinct styles throughout his time. And some of it has aged pretty well and some of it has not aged very well. So we'll talk about it. I'm going to show you every record and give you a quick thought on them. And you tell me what you think. I know he's kind of divisive. People either love Tom Waits or can't stand him. So I don't want to play any Tom Waits music. I think that would get me in copyright hell. So I am playing something that I believe is not going to get me in copyright hell. New Music for Harp by Susan Allen. This is a cheap record on the 1750 Arch record. You could find this for less than $10. I got it for $10 at the 2 years ago at the WFMU Record Fair. Nice modern classical stuff. Yeah, I think there's copies less than $10 right now if anyone wants to get it. So we'll hear that. Probably both sides. So Tom Waits started in 1973. He was signed to David Geffen's label, Geffen Records, and or I should say Asylum Records. Sorry, Asylum Records. Geffen would come later, but he was sort of put on the scene early and was like, I think, touring with musicians that didn't make sense. Maybe opening for Frank Zappa. Like they didn't know what to do with him. And he would start to soon take on this persona of being like a beatnik, sort of like drunken, sort of a bit silly, but endearing with funny jokes, very sleazy, and songs that would match it at piano, mainly piano, guitar, and then lots of strings on these early records, which is where it gets to be a bit hard. Bones Howe was the major producer. So here is Closing Time from 1973. Now the Tom Waits records have gone up in one in particular. This one sat with me much better than I thought it would. Here's the inner. This is produced by Jerry Yester, this one actually. I think Bones Howe would come after. Once he moves, changes labels, that is. But this one's on Asylum. This is the promotional copy. It doesn't have promo labels. It's pressed well. I don't know if it did. But this one sat with me pretty good. Much more mellower, much more like he was just trying to be like a singer-songwriter. And a little traditional, simple. Like the bluesy numbers I didn't quite remember liking as much and still don't, but I like how sparse this one is and like how subtle it is. So, from 1973, this is a pretty good record still in my mind. Closing Time. So the next bunch are, coming on the heels of that. I didn't realize I had What am I saying? Let's see. No, he didn't change. He was on Asylum early on, completely, I believe. But 1974, Heart of Saturday Night. Now, I have all original pressings. Some of them are early represses, like this one, The Heart of Saturday Night. Much more produced. Bones Howe is the producer once again. And he's starting to find a name for himself as, like, yeah, this late night kind of beatnik. Yeah, this is the later Asylum label. This is all his Asylum records, or you see these quite a bit. Yeah, this is like Tom Waits being the barfly, and for me, it's San Diego Serenade. It's a nice song. Diamonds on My Windshield. It's a little sappy, but he was really going for a mood and an idea, and doing it well. These weren't really super successful. I think he was making a name for himself around Hollywood and LA at that time, staying at the Tropicana, all this stuff. And so he was definitely a mover and a shaker, it seems like, but I don't know how successful these really were. But he stayed on Asylum Records throughout the 70s. The next one, 1975. And this is Nighthawks at the Diner. Pretty interesting in that it's a double live album of new material, but recorded live. And he gets a little subversive on here, you might say. He drops the F-bomb, which was pretty rare for the time. It's a song about jerking off. I think it's warm beer and cold women. And there's lots of audience laughter and stuff like that. He's definitely like, holding court, you might say. Here he is at the diner. Good shot. Good cover. Good. But yeah, these early Asylum records, if there were any records I wouldn't keep, and we'll see, these are probably the ones I wouldn't keep. Because I just don't feel like they've aged that well. Small Change, maybe the hardest one for me to digest. Oh, I still have the lyric in her sleeve. 1976, again, Bones Howe. Shelly Manne is on here, playing drums. Tons of strings. Gets a little sappy, and that's where I start to lose it. Like, it just doesn't feel like it aged very well, all the strings. Step Right Up was the song on here that was famously not used in a Doritos commercial, but they asked him, and he said no. He was very much against putting his music in advertising. And then they hired like a Tom Waits impersonator to do the song like in a different. It's Step Right Up but changed. It's basically like a send up, and he won a big lawsuit on that. That's a pretty well known story. Things get a little better with Foreign Affairs. Although you have Bette Midler on here, which I really don't need to hear. I'm not a fan, not a fan of Bette Midler on a record. But Foreign Affairs gets a little more down on this, a little more sort of late night, more Bones Howe. But there's more strings. And here's the inner sleeve. I have nice copies of all these records, pretty much. That boho jazz thing, it just gets to be tiresome. So, yeah, not a fan of this one either. Foreign Affairs from 1977. 1978, we have Blue Valentine. Things got a little better, maybe, but a terrible lead track. Somewhere. Yeah, again, just like bad movie soundtrack. Christmas Card from a Hooker in Minneapolis is kind of like the song that this record's known for, if you ask me. He does have Whistling Past the Graveyard on here, which is a little bit of a forecast or sort of foreshadow to what he would do in the 80s. Again, on Asylum Records, like all the 70s records. I misspoke earlier saying Elektra. Misspoke! Yeah, that's a great shot, Tom. Come on. I think you might have rethought that now. So yeah, a couple of cool tracks keeping for this, but not one I would recommend necessarily. Heart Attack and Vine, better than I remember at this one. again. Now this is when they're part of Elektra Asylum, so you get those labels. Again, more strings. Again, this is the last Bones Howe. This is the last Bones Howe production, but this one is starting to show Tom Waits going to this more seedier, sleazy mode. And the 80s Waits persona is sprinkled in here, which we would get in a very short time there. Of course, you have Downtown and Jersey Girls on this, very well known for being covered by Bruce Springsteen, but originally a Tom Waits song. On the Nickels, a pretty good tune. And yeah, it's mostly Waits playing piano, a little bit of guitar. Jerry Yester is back on some of this conducting. He probably did other conducting too. I don't know for whatever reason I'm looking into the personnel on this one, but you do have Larry Taylor, would be a big throughout his career, big from Canned Heat, a big collaborator with Tom Waits over the course of his entire career. But this is from 1980. Heart Attack and Vine. Then at that time, this is when he meets Kathleen Brennan, his still wife and collaborator for the rest of his career. I think they met on the production of this movie, One from the Heart. This isn't very good. 1982. I think I liked one song, Little Boy Blue. Is that what it was? You do have like a lot of the Tom Waits people on here. Emile Richards is on here. Interesting. Greg Cohen, another big name that turns up in a lot of Tom Waits records. And so in the 80s, he moves to New York. He's now collaborating with his new wife, Kathleen Brennan. He makes what is known as the Frank Trilogy. Oh, Swordfish Trombones. I found the mastering a bit dead on this. This is still on the shrink. And I forget if this is the very first original label. I think it is. And he's now on Island Records. But I think Island was still a Warner subsidiary, so it was like, yeah, it was at that time. Yep, Warner Communications. But this is where he really was emulating Captain Beefheart. He'd heard Beefheart and wanted to really get into more weird stuff. He was using a lot more percussion, a lot more unnatural sort of songwriting techniques. Shore Leave is a really cool song. I love that. And you have In the Neighborhood's fun. It's like very much like a marching band type thing. 16 Shells from the 30-06 is really cool. But again, I found this, I don't know, the mastering not great for this one. But definitely a big change. You have like weird instrumentals like Dave the Butcher. A very different record for Tom Waits, and I think it shocked a lot of his fans. But these are the ones that, to this day, I think people are more interested in, and I would include myself in that. Rain Dogs has become one of his most in-demand records. This is from 1985. Bit of a delay in record. I believe this isn't a very first. It's got these labels. I didn't write it down, but it's got these Black Island labels. Where it is, I forget. I'll have to put it in after. I know a few of these in the Frank Trilogy. I have one of them is like later, but obviously not going to upgrade. This one's probably come up the most in value, but it's got a lot of his. Yeah, this one's known as a classic, and I agree. This one still sounded really good to me. We have Mark Ribot turning up now. He'll also collaborate with Waits for the next 20 years. Downtown Train, boom. That's the one that Rod Stewart did, right? So that's on here. And for me, this one held up, like I said, very good. Strong songs. You know, just continuing to experiment and just being weird good. And this cover, great cover. The third record in the Frank's trilogy is Frank's Wild Years, and this one it gets a little more circusy, a little more. This is not my favorite of that trilogy for sure, but Frank's Wild Years. What are the songs of note? Straight to the Top, a little annoying. Temptation, he's starting to do that. I haven't really mentioned it. That really high falsetto he started doing, which I like. I like when he does that high falsetto. That almost sounds like he can't sing that well, which many argue he couldn't. And that's I haven't really talked about, obviously, what he did with his voice. Like on Closing Time, he was going more straight singing. And then just a couple of albums later, by The Heart of Saturday Night and Small Change and all that, he started doing that gruff thing that really became a bit of a signature, I guess. A lot of people just can't get down with it. I liked it. I still am okay with it. I'm still good with it. That's the final piece of that Frank trilogy for Island Records. I have this live album, Big Time, which is a live performance of all that stuff, including one new track. I think it's Falling Down. I think it's a European press. No, it's not. It's American. It's a gold stamp promo, but it's DMM mastered, though. So yeah, live recordings. He did a live concert film of this too, which is pretty rare from what I remember. You can see it on YouTube. But you have Mark Ribot, Ralph Carney, Greg Cohen, Michael Blair, drummer, and Willie Schwartz as his band on this live record. And it's all the songs basically from this era. I don't think there's anything older on here. No, I don't believe so. And then that would kind of end that period, and he would then turn up in the 90s, kind of making a very out-of-step record, but one that is probably, to this day, the one that holds up the best for me and the one I would keep the longest. We're talking about Bone Machine. This is the Euro press, the original European press. This has been heavily bootlegged and officially reissued. I haven't heard anyone say anything good about those reissues. That's the original inner. I got this a long ass time ago, but this one has not come down in price. There's a European, a UK press, a Spanish press, and you have to watch out with this one. This one's really been bootlegged quite a bit. So the original Island labels, I won't go into how you can decipher because I was just going through this, but I think it has to do with the Island logo in the font. But this is, I guess, he was really looking to push the boundaries. He ended up recording this in like an old prison, like a giant cement room, and it really sounds like it. You have Keith Richards turning up on that feel, and this has just got such a great percussive In the Red sound to it. What's the one? Well, I love a lot of this on here. There's a couple of ballads like A Little Rain. Going Out West is a big one. The times I've seen him, by the way, I'll talk about that, but always wanted to hear him play Going Out West. He didn't ever play it when I saw him, but all strip. Yeah, there's tons of cool. Earth Died Screaming, the first track, is definitely a point where you're going to be like, whoa. So from 1982, and the height of grunge, Tom Waits is still doing his thing, so you got to like that. I Don't Want to Grow Up, sort of a silly song, but fun. I know the Ramones did a cover of that. So this one, and this sounds fantastic for the mastering quality, for the all-in-all vinyl experience. Great listen. So I'm still very much enjoying Bone Machine. Black Rider, not an easy record. This is also the original pressing from, I think it's 93. This is originally conceived as a play directed for Robert Wilson, and it has a lot of odd stuff on here, incidental music, orchestral things, but then like some strange ass tunes like I'll Shoot the Moon. What's the other one? the William Burroughs, of course, is on this. That's the big thing. This one listed as produced by Tom Waits, 1983 on Island. I believe it's I'll Shoot the song with Burroughs. Let's see, what is it again? The one about shaking around and dancing in your bones. Oh, then you have Lucky Day, one of his most really excellent ballads. Really excellent song. I'm talking about sitting by a campfire with a can of beans. Yeah, Burroughs is on here. Some good shots of Waits too on the inner sleeve. Yep. The Thalia Theater. Here's a picture of the Black Rider, the casting of the Magic Bullets with Robert Williams, Tom Waits, William Burroughs. A lot of cool orchestral pieces on this, and definitely not an easy listen, but I found this one to sit pretty well. And then 6 years, no word from Tom Waits until 1999, when he brings in this record. And this is the one that got me into him. I wasn't into Tom Waits at all until I heard this record, Mule Variations. And he did a big U.S. tour. This record, tried to go see him, but missed out on getting tickets at the, what was it, Beacon Theater maybe? But again, he kind of really brings back the Bone Machine idea here with like heavy percussive backbeat, like very rich sound, very well recorded, like really close miking of everything. You have a lot of the same people playing here, Larry Taylor, Mark Ribot, a lot of the same collaborators again, but Charlie Musselwhite turns up here, look at that. But a couple of weird things too, like What's He Building, this spoken word piece with sort of, noise and sort of atmospheric sound. Some really beautiful tunes like Picture in a Frame, Come On Up to the House, Georgia Lee, really great ballads. And then you just have some weird stuff too, like Pony, Black Market Baby, which is another shout out to Bone Machine, really. This is I believe this is an original press or early repress. It's got a promo cut because I got this from my old gig. It's a double album, 1989, Mule Variations. I think it's one of his most well-loved songs, and this one did hold up pretty damn well for me. Then a few years later, he would release 2 records at the same time in 2002. Alice, which is another kind of like Black Rider meant as a stage, songs for a play. And there's a bunch of weird stuff on here, and just another, kind of a good variety again. Weird incidental music, good ballads, acoustic numbers, like good stuff. Tabletop Joe, kind of a jazz tune. There's always a lot of jazz in Tom Waits, I haven't mentioned that. Beautiful last track, Fawn, on this, with just Singing Saw, I believe it is. These are on the Anti label, as was the last record. At this point, yes, he moved on from Island Records and was on Anti. And then Blood Money is definitely a much more aggressive record. Not great to me. I don't think this is him at his best in terms of being experimental. Misery is the River of the World is the first one. All the World is Green is kind of a nice tune. A little bit different vibe to it. There's some cool stuff on this. I don't think this is his best work in terms of that's concerned. Yeah, I forgot this one. This one I listened to. I can listen to every record again this year. Real Gone. This is a strong record in his catalog. Another double album. This is from 2004. He was very prolific around the turn of the century. This has got some real bangers on it. Hoist That Rag is on here. Big song. Make It Rain is a really cool song. Really another great, beautiful ballad, Day After Tomorrow. Green Grass is a lovely, intimate song. That gruff voice is very much in check here. Very much not in check here, I should say. But a double album. The Day After Tomorrow was about a anti-war song, which at the time, of course, we were really embattled in the Iraqi war. This is a great one. Really holds up really well. And this is the one that he did re-record or remix parts of it to re-release. I like this old shot of the microphone here on the inner sleeve. Don't know why he did that, but he did. So this is one to check out if you don't know this one. Real Gone. Am I keeping these records? That is a question I don't have the answer to at this moment. We'll see. If anything sells, I'll sell the earliest stuff. For a while I wanted to really collect him and keep all of his records. I don't have the soundtrack for the Jarmusch record because he turns up acting in the 80s in a bunch of things. Jim Jarmusch films particularly. But the Night on Earth. Night on Earth is a soundtrack I don't have. And this is his most recent album from 2011. And it's good, especially the first side. It gets a little weaker on the second side, but this is Bad As Me. His son, by the way, Casey Waits, drummer, plays on both of these records. The most recent two, Real Gone and this. And he toured with him. I didn't mention it, but I did end up seeing Tom Waits on the next thing I'll show you. But in 2006, he toured, and then 2009 he toured. And I saw him. He played a few other shows, but I saw him. I saw him 3 times actually. I saw him first in Akron, Ohio, and then that was in 2006, the day after I got married. And then in 2009, he did another tour, the Glitter and Doom tour, which I don't have a record of. I have that on CD. But I saw him in Columbus, Ohio, and Knoxville, Tennessee. I went to 2 shows that tour because it was hard to get tickets and rare to see Tom Waits live. But he didn't really tour for this one. He hit a few states, I think, a few cities in the States, and then went to Europe. But really nice, really good return here. Kind of, he's still in that, existing in the same place, you know. Very clever lyrics, big percussive backbeats. You know, I'd say even more catchy on this one, you might say. Very danceable tracks, like really good grooves that he gets going on this one. Yeah, big time, strong back percussive feels to these records. But yeah, Ribot's here, Larry Taylor's here, Keith Richards is back, and of course Casey Waits. And this is his last album as of now, from 2011. And then, of course, this is the last thing I'll show. I won't take it out, but he made the box set, which in many ways may be his most interesting release, because it's not a compilation. It is all unreleased and new music. So he toured for this. This was 2000. God, it's hard to remember. Maybe this was 2009. Yeah, that's the tour, 2009. And he played a lot of these songs. I won't take out every record, but Brawlers, Ballers, Bastards, and this vinyl box set came with a bonus disc of only music exclusive to the vinyl set. The CD set came first, if I remember correctly, and I do have that, and I actually have that signed by Tom Waits. And this has a lot of really great stuff on it. The Bastards of what's maybe the coolest is all kinds of experimental ideas, children's songs, songs about nature. Army Ants, of course, is on here. Some stuff exists in other places, but mostly not. His cover of Daniel Johnson's King Kong is on that, but so Brawlers are all the sort of upbeat and sort of like punchy songs. Ballers are the sad ones. And then Bastards, the weird shit, which is so much like his career. This would get broken out into individual titles for Record Store Day, I think, I don't know how many years ago, 7, 8 years ago, which I think those are kind of collectible now. But this is the box set where they're originally from. And the bonus has Crazy About My Baby, Diamond in Your Mind, Cannon Song, Pray, No One Can Forgive Me, and Matthew Grove. And so to hear those on vinyl, you have to have this edition of the set. So this originally was like $125. I think it's maybe selling for $200 now, a little over that. When I listened to this again recently, I really enjoyed everything on this. So yeah, the other things I have a lot of stuff on CD, a lot of the same things I showed on CD, and a couple 7-inches. No, only the one 7-inch I have is the Glitter and Doom 7-inch, which was a Record Store Day. But anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it with this Tom Waits video. Pretty long, but I just thought it'd be fun to talk about an artist I never talk about and just see where I feel about him. How I feel about it? Yeah, it's nostalgia, and I can be influenced by nostalgia quite a bit. So I don't know that I'm quite ready to get rid of him. We'll see. If anyone's super interested, let me know. But don't know that I'll be playing a lot of that stuff again right now. You know, the stuff I was most interested in, who knows, maybe I will, but even that stuff, it's still like Tom, you know, I'm always into discovering different kinds of things these days, new music, stuff I don't know about, so it's weird to come back to such a like legacy artist, but we'll see. I am curious. I would definitely be curious to see if he does more music, so. Alright, Tom Waits. I guess I'm kind of still a fan, but certainly a lot of it I'm not. Some of it I'm not. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Take care.